So I want to talk to how to begin the return. And so how do we move from shutdown into regulation? When we're in a functional freeze state, where we are in a dorsal vagal, we're in like numbed out, cannot be present. So moving out of that state can be feeling really unsafe, and we don't often know what foot to put next in order to move out of that state. And so when we're in a shutdown state, we need a charge to get us out. So if we're in a state of grief or freeze or shutdown and we're in this really numbed out place, we need a huge charge to get us up into our socially engaged, our ventral vagal state. And that charge needs to be really powerful, and often can come into in the form of anger or rage or injustice, like kind of that space of like, oh, these are so unfair. And we move out of that functional freeze into that ventral vagal, into that socially engaged state. And that big charge is where rage and grief really intersect and come in together. Rage cracks the shell. Rage brings us out of our functional freeze state. Grief softens the inside, but we can't do this alone. We need community. We need safe spaces where these states of grief and rage are not pathologized but honored, where movement, ritual, tears, sound, and stillness are all welcome. I've sat in many women's circles where I facilitated as well as participated, and had the absolute blessing of holding space for other women when they're in their grief as well as their rage, and that space being held for me too, as well as shame, as well as fear, as well as really edgy and difficult and dense and sticky states that we can go into where community is not so great at mapping and we don't have a map and blueprint for how these spaces are held in the day-to-day and in our community. And when I've sat in circle and I've had these expressions in myself and watched these expressions from other women, and I felt it in my body and I've held that space of ground and that witnessing, it has been absolutely profound. When you sit in space of holding ground for yourself and others, and you are working on your regulation and you are working on your system while someone else is having their expression in their system, it is extraordinarily powerful and healing, not just to you, but to the other people in that space, to the other women in that space, not just the woman that you're holding, but that holding and that regulation, it feeds into the field of the group work. It feeds into then the community and into the globe. And it touches on places and spaces within you that are really difficult to touch on in the everyday, or even when you don't have the confidence or the mapping or the support in order to go to those places and spaces in your everyday, within your system.